Hi, and welcome to GEP's LinkedIn Live, Unlocking the Power of Digital Supply Chain Transformation in Indian Manufacturing Companies. Today, we look forward to discussing India's digitalization journey and where it will be in 5 years, the prevalence and importance of new technology and what innovative SaaS solutions can do for your enterprise, and best practices for effective change management. If you have any questions during the discussion, please feel free to type them in the chat box. We are joined by Sharad Kumar Agarwal, CDIO of JK Tire and Industries Limited, and Bharath Raghavan, Vice President of TSO at GEP. Mr. Agarwal has 3 decades of proven cross-functional expertise in the fields of digital and business management with strong domain experience in manufacturing, covering the entire gamut of production, maintenance, quality, projects, and technical and service functions. His mantra for success is to deliver technology-led sustained results with effective change management. From GEP, Bharath Raghavan has over 20 years of experience in procurement, transformation consulting, working with global clients spanning from banking and financial services sector, FMCG, and manufacturing industries. His specialties include P2P and source-to-contract expertise, strategic sourcing, category management, supplier negotiations, change and project management, business process reengineering, and performance improvement. Without further ado, let's get into the conversation. We'll start with India's digitalization journey and where it will be in 5 years. Sharad, sir, do you see nuanced challenges or opportunities in the Indian market?
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, everyone, for having me here. And so, India obviously has gained a strong position in the world order with significant positive consequences for the macro as well as the market outlook. It has not been an overnight magic wand which came to do it for us, but an outcome of well articulated policies. Some of them were like supply side policy reforms, formalization of the economy, tax and labor related reforms, real estate act, digitalizing of social transfers, the DBTs, insolvency and bankruptcy code, flexible inflation targeting, focus on FDIs, India 401k movement, like creation of domestic risk saving pool. So why I am just trying to set the context here is digitalization has taken India to a pedestal where we had not been there earlier. So India got the last mover or the later mover advantage and has come up from the behind, taking everyone by surprise. Just for an example, the digital payments, 40% of the world's digital payments happen in India. So digital is taking India places and it's happening at a breakneck speed. And in the next 5 years, it will become digital will be a major thrust, a major propeller of the economy for all of us. And it will help not just in exporting our technologies, services, products to the world, but also improving the internal GDP. So India has reached a sizable position. Probably we see India reaching third spot in the pecking order of the GDP. And in the 5 years, digitalization will be one of the most important criteria. So yes, there are both nuanced challenges and opportunities. Opportunities are because of the modern workforce, the people that the demographic dividend is with us, and the usage pattern, the how we are consuming digital technologies has become very important for us, and that's why we are looking for newest digital things to help us. And yes, the challenges can remain how we remain secure, how we do things. So trust deficiency may be a challenge for all of us. So that's my say for the start.
Thank you. I'll probably join in Sharad in much of his comments. I think is very insightful. In terms of what we see as sort of our own experience, there are yes challenges and opportunities, but if you look at this through the lens of three stakeholder groups, one is the government or the establishment, the ability for people at large or public at large to embrace digital ways of working. And the last lens I would offer is the readiness of corporate India, for example, to embrace the digital journey, right? So all of these three cohorts need to come together, right, to harvest the opportunity. To what Sharad was saying, I think if you look at the government of the day and the level of progress that's been made in the last decade in particular, there are large number of examples. He made a very pertinent point about UPI. If you go further back in time, India was one of the earliest countries to, in fact, enact the IT Information Act, right, which in itself was pivotal in many ways. It continues to continue to make massive progress in terms of the jam trinity, so to speak. Zero balance bank accounts, mobile access, unique identification, early adoption of 5G, the GST initiatives, and so on and so forth. So clearly, in short, the government is in an extremely good place to be able to continue to move forward with the digital journey, which in itself presents a lot of opportunities for corporates and for public at large. Interestingly, if you look at it through the lens of the common man on the road, it's amazing how we have propelled from nowhere and come to where we are as far as digital payments are concerned. But what has happened more consistently is that we have been late comers in many aspects, but we've been able to leapfrog technologies in multiple places. If you look at the telecom revolution, for instance, we completely skipped the stage of public telephone booths, so to speak, and directly went to mobiles, right? A typical example again comes to the payments space where we pretty much skip the credit card revolution in a way in terms of mass adoption and directly move to the UPI and QR code era. Long story short, I think these two stakeholders obviously are more than ripe for harvesting the opportunity. If anything, and I like to take a bit of a stance here, corporate India may probably be the one that is going to have to keep pace with the other two, right? Because the public is ready, the government of the day at least is clearly pushing forward with the digital agenda. Corporate India obviously needs to continue to keep pace, invest in, and strategically make sure that they are at the right place at the right time to make the investments to make sure all these opportunities are coming to bear. Lastly, if you look at the challenges, I think yes, the technology space in itself churns over every 4 to 5 years, right? So you don't know where the next big disruptive technology is going to come around, and that means a lot of uncertainty in some ways in terms of making investment choices, especially for corporate India, which obviously needs to look at the larger ramifications in terms of return for investments and so on and so forth. But these are things which we don't have an easy answer, but just things to keep a watch for in the days ahead as the journey progresses further.
So, just taking a cue from what Bharat said, so the best challenge that you have described, I have never thought of it this way. The corporate world is in a challenging position to keep up with the expectation of both the government as well as the people, the users. So that's a very nice summarization of the digitalization way forward for journey. Thanks, Bharat.
Thank
Over to
you.
you.
All right. Thank you both for those insights. Now let's move on to the prevalence and importance of new technology and what innovative SaaS solutions can do for enterprises. Sharad, sir, what is the importance of digital transformation and adoption in the supply chain?
So thanks for the question. It's an interesting question, and I'll start by stating some facts. So as per World Bank's Logistics Performance Index (LPI), published in 2018, India was ranked 44th. Logistics costs were on a very high side, 16% of the GDP in India, due to several difficulties, which include inadequate infrastructure, regulatory hurdles, high transportation costs, slow cross-state flow of goods, security concerns, but more importantly, a lack of digitalization and a trained workforce shortage. So our NLP, the National Logistics Policy, aims to reduce the spend from 16% to 8%, backed by digital transformations. For example, one of the very talked about initiative which was launched 6 months back was ULIP, Unified Logistics Interface Platform. Why I brought all of this to the table is why we not need to adopt digital transformation in supply chain. So supply chain remained a neglected area till some time. So we can improve forecast, we can improve visibility, And if we can transport the goods, which, so what we are saying, if transportation of a good from place A to B is taking 8 days, if that can be brought down to 4 days, so our total inventory WIP is reduced by 50%. So it is improving the logistics performance, the transportation cost, as well as the goods. So there's a money on the road which has to be brought to the end user. So digitalization will certainly be a very important factor because everything now harps upon digitalization. So supply chain end to end, it starts from the raw material procurement and goes till the product has been consumed, includes production, includes transportation, includes supply, includes ordering, everything. So this area, so we are seeing the benefits of it with the coming of Amazons or even Zeptos going away ahead. So you are getting things in India in 10 minutes, which was never thought of, never nobody had even imagined. So you go, and as Bharat had pointed out, you never know what's the new technology coming. So probably, if can we put a mind map somewhere in which things can be just what I'm thinking can be ordered. So all of this, we are currently, luckily, in a very interesting place, interesting time where we are seeing culmination of multiple technologies. We are at cusp of innovations. Let's see what future brings to all of us.
Absolutely, Sharadji. I think you made a very pertinent point around the unified logistics platform that's under in flight in a way, right? It also speaks a lot to what the governments at power believe in terms of the importance for supply chains to get digitized because it's not there was if you go circle back in time to maybe even 15 years back, some of the early movers who made investments in digitizing supply chain at that point were seen to be the top-notch companies looking to be in the best in class or best in the world in the space. It was seen as a nice to have for companies pushing the barrier. The honest fact is, right now, digitizing a supply chain is no longer an option. It's a question of how quickly can you move, how quickly can you afford to not move, more importantly, right? So the reality is, it's a symbiotic ecosystem, and nobody wants to be the one who's left behind in the chain. I mean, very simple example, right? Look at, while globalization as a concept has been around for a couple of decades, we are now probably seeing a natural end of globalization with a lot of geopolitics, of course, coming into some of this equation. But the fact is, despite the fact that everybody is trying to go a little bit back in time in a way, looking at becoming more self sufficient, the fact is global supply chains are more integrated than ever before. So it's not uncommon if I can give an example, which I'm sure will Sharad will agree, right? You look at a small player somewhere sitting in a third-tier city in Gujarat, who's probably making some textiles, right? Or you go down south to a place like Shivakasi, where you make firecrackers for the world. These guys are actually dependent on raw materials and access to markets which are global, whereas they themselves are actually buried way deep in the supply chain. So it just tells you that there is a huge amount of global linkage. And if anything, with things like the pandemic and the supply chain disruption, the Suez Canal incident, where one incident somewhere sparks a whole cascading impact across the chain, it's all the more pivotal that companies continue to look at the right level of investments to digitally transform their supply chain. I think there are a lot more examples back home, back in India, which is the context of this conversation, where companies are making a huge amount of investments, but crucially, back to the earlier point, the government is playing a huge role in setting up the backbones on which innovation can happen. Right, much the same way as UPI, the unified logistics platform is going to hopefully be pivotal to. It almost becomes like a digital railroad onto which you can hop on and hop off, leveraging the best of what the smaller entrepreneurs with a couple of trucks has to offer and make it accessible to a much larger base of corporate consumers. I think we're in exciting times, I think, needless to say.
Excellent. Thank you. Next question on the same topic. Sharad, sir, are there vulnerabilities to digital supply chains, and how do you protect from those threats?
Yeah, this is again interesting. So whenever we are trying to do anything good, so there are bad actors who are always there, prevalent. So sometimes we used to say that people find loopholes in a law before it gets enacted. So, but supply chain attacks, just for the audience, these supply chain attackers seek to damage an organization by targeting their lesser secure elements in the supply chain. So they are sort of emerging threat that target software, sometimes hardware also, but mostly software developers and suppliers. The goal is to access the source code, build processes, or update mechanisms by infecting legitimate apps to distribute malware. So some very infamous examples like the dependency confusion 2021, Mimecast 2021, and the most effectively run was the SolarWinds 2020. So what people try to do, they try to see where you are vulnerable. If so, normally a attacker will try to find the weakest link in the chain. That's why we have to keep an overall watch. We have to have a cyber secure ecosystem. So we have to not ourselves, but in our ecosystem, means in the overall supply chain providers, try to use the best cybersecurity practices, probably move for the DevSecOps platforms. That's the current one. And we need to have a robust software, SDLC, software development lifecycle, even being practiced by our providers. So sometimes we are going for a tier one product, sometimes we are going for an open source product, but all of these preventions of the basic cybersecurity tools, practices have to be followed. Like if you are a Six Sigma company, you try to train your vendors, even your customers, to be there. Or if you are a TQM compliant company, so similarly, for to remain secure, we have to do the same both upstream and downstream. So that's all we have to do. But yeah, it's a game in which one is after the other, but let's try to be secure as far as we can. And then we have to have sort of some backups, plan B, C ready in case something happens, how to protect it. And there's an important more one more factor, so which is not directly related, but still cyber insurance may help people if something, God forbid, happens, which may prevent them for incurring the heavy losses. Over to you, Mr. Bharat.
Sure, sir. In fact, I think as I was reflecting on your comments in the last few minutes, I was thinking to myself that perhaps the infosec role in an IT organization is perhaps a hot seat at the moment that nobody wants to occupy. Quite clearly, to your point, I think what history tells us is technologies change very rapidly, and if anything, the cycle times are getting shorter. But the security realm relating to a certain technology always is a laggard, right? It's always months, weeks, and years behind the actual technology moving forward. What that does, especially in the current climate, and this is something that we're seeing consistently across our ecosystem, is obviously when we have conversations with customers, we are able to take certain decisions today, and so are our customers, which even 5 years back would be seen to be far too risky, because there has been huge improvements in the overall infrastructure and security ecosystem at large. But having said that, the challenge of today, and the reason I said that the infosec officer is in a hot seat, is businesses will obviously and want to access the latest, greatest technology to make the real business impact, either from in terms of how they service customers, how they buy better, how they distribute in a more efficient manner, so on and so forth. But that is obviously a very fair lens, and to that extent, there is will be a nudge and a push from business to continue to invest in new platforms and new technologies. The flip side, of course, is you know, how do you ensure as new technologies come in that you continue to hold on to the level of security policies and comfort that you have, so that in the event of an unfortunate incident, there is still fallback options, as Sharad was mentioning, right? Whether it's from the more basics like backups and so on and so forth. So you're kind of getting pulled in two different directions, for a lack of better word. But that's the real situation that a lot of infosec teams find themselves in. That how do you support the business while being the auditor, so to speak, and push back and challenge some new ideas when it seemed to be a bit too risky for your own appetite. So it's a interesting time again. There is no one simple answer, I'm afraid, as with most such topics. But if anything, this will get, I guess, more stark and more obvious, because one other lens I just wanted to offer was the vulnerability of digital supply chains is also hugely linked with some of the geopolitical turmoil that we are seeing today, right? Because it's not just the technology itself, but also the fact that you've got to keep looking at your security architecture through the lens of geopolitical happenings and impact. For instance, a lot of your system providers could have data in a particular location that you're happy with and could have, backup sites elsewhere, right? Now, these backup sites may today be in a country where you can afford to engage with, but not in the future, given how rapidly things are changing in the future, right? So, what looked like a good BCP solution today may cease to be one very quickly, depending on some of those external factors going on. So it's a beast of a world that we're living right now. Never a dull moment, but it's just something we all need to brace ourselves to, get headed to, and then make sure that we think through as many of the potential impacts as we can and continue to plan for it.
Thank you so much for those insights. All right, one more question on this same topic. Sharad, sir, in terms of the relevance of digital transformation for mid-enterprise and enterprise companies, at what point is it economically viable?
Yeah, that's a very interesting lens or a side to look it from, but still, from the relevance perspective, digital transformation has amplified the prospect of operations for for the small and medium-sized enterprises also. Rather, the major impact is that several non-tradable services are now tradable. As Mr. Bharat was talking about the cracker maker down south, probably his products can be now made available to any part of the world. So it has helped the offline businesses to explore more options online. And in this vibrant economy, as I was also mentioning in the very beginning, consumer expect quality digital accessibility, digital in inverted commas. So most of our today's younger generation, mostly who are under 35, they prefer digital over traditional methods for exploring, transacting, everything. They want to do most of the things online. So SMEs also need to get ready with their laces tied up to serve the digital natives, as we call today, as digital transformation has become need of the hour. So this is about the relevance. But at what point it becomes economically viable? Because there so multiple bigger providers do have specific price sensitive plans for the SMEs. But even in that case, sometimes to bear that cost and find value out of that digital adoption sometimes becomes difficult. So suppose I want to just quote an example, if a very small enterprise want to have a digital twin, will it be possible? Probably no at this time. So two important terms, democratization of the products as well as commoditization. When both of them get together, so the technology will be available to the user at a very attractive cost, hence they can reap full benefit out of it. Secondly, what I have been thinking and advocating is sometimes it might be useful that the state comes into picture and probably provides it as a platform for users. Just for an example, currently the government of India is working on the ONDC platform, Open Network Digital Commerce. So what it is, probably it's a competition in the times to come for the Amazons. But here the biggies cannot squeeze the SME. We have heard that they sometimes have been charging 30%, 35% of their total revenue, and this ONDC may go max to a level of 2%. So similarly, the state responsibility, the state has so state is also putting in their best foot forward, so which was not earlier possible on a personal level or a private level has been made available as a service to the user. Similarly, more things can come. ONDC was just an example.
That's right.
So, but it's still time where all of the digital technologies may be adopted, but multiple imperatives will help the because in India, this SMBs contribute to more than roughly 60% of the GDP. So we have to look for everyone. Over to you, Mr. Bharat.
No, no, very, very well said, sir. Because I think the backdrop to all of these topics is obviously the context of how it applies in, for example, the case of Indian companies. So, to your last comment, right? The platform that the government is working on to get a digital, e-tailing backbone, so to speak, to get these MSMEs on board. That's a good example of a government-led ecosystem. But to your larger point, at what point does it become viable? Yes, there is, as you very rightly said, Sharad, there is a ROI for every investment, be it a large corporate or a smaller MSME. But I think the good thing that we're seeing is in general, there is the barrier to entry is just becoming lower and lower and lower. So any type of digitization that you want to do, whether it's on the sell side with your customers or on the buy side with your supply chain partners, the barriers are getting lower both in terms of access to technology and also the level of fixed cost investment you got to make. And it's becoming fungible, and a lot of it is in fact even coming down to transaction level pricing if you look at what's out there in the market. So that what that does for MSMEs is what used to be a complicated decision, highly leveraged, needing huge amount of introspection, is starting to get much easier. Now, having said that, yes, it is never going to be as obvious for an MSME organization to make larger investments. But what on the flip side, it gives them access to global markets very quickly. A very personal sort of case in point, right? It's only very recently that I got a link forwarded by an acquaintance for an online site where they were actually selling, handmade miniature versions of certain temples in India, right? Now, this is a cottage industry that you will go to every second or third city, the smaller one, you will find it. The fact that some of them could actually get onto a portal and I could get a link sitting out here in metropolitan Mumbai and be able to access a product that somebody is making in a very small, innocuous place tells me that his ability to just get his wares on the platform is immediately given him access to a large consumer base with the interest and the propensity to make payments for such items. So I think the opportunities are there. Thankfully, directionally, the cost of entry is coming down. The cost of technology access is coming down. But I think what will need to be done is to continue to make sure that the regulatory framework around all of this is kept simple. Actually, the best thing that can happen is to not to regulate. Allow them to go on for as long as you can. At some point, when the critical mass sets in and you find that there are hygiene aspects, the government can step in. But I'm not in the government, so I can only make a larger comment on the basis of as a consumer. But that's what we have seen in general succeed well in India. And a slight digression, but the IT sector grew, and most people would agree it grew phenomenally because there was less government, not more of it, right? So I think that equally applies in this space as well.
So just to add, Mr. Bharat, when you said that there shall be less of regulation, I was just reading a case study. So one of the professors at IIM Ahmedabad, Dr. Pankaj Setia, was talking about. So what he said that normally what happens in case of a disruptive technology, the legislation or regulation follows the technology because the technology was not there. So we don't know how to regulate it.
Correct.
So just adding to the point, so it will follow less regulation, but yes, because the government has never been knowing what to do with this type of new thing what's this new thing looking like, what this weird new thing. So legislation will always follow the technology.
That's right. Yeah, and we hope to keep it that way.
Yeah, it will.
Exactly.
All right, thank you. That was definitely helpful and illuminated what to consider in terms of digitalization. Now, let's get into some best practices for effective change management. Sharad, sir, what is your advice for the most effective change management?
Actually, means this we have been discussing, and probably after technology, this is the most difficult thing to manage because Change management, it's not one size fits all type of a shoe, but yes, it has to be very tailor made to your organization. The organization that you are working for a change, you have to understand the culture, because it is said that culture eats strategy for for its breakfast. So whatever strategy you made, it has to align to the culture. Sometimes people say it has to be bottoms up, some people say it has to be top down, but what I have personally seen, that it has to be a mix of both. It has to be driven from the top, as well as you have to take everyone on ground with you, because everyone wants to see what's in it for me. If there's something in it for me, if I can reduce my time by 5 minutes, if I can, whatever benefit, if it's bringing to me, if it is reducing my reconciliation time, if it's reducing my one step, whatever. So we have to take everyone along by showing the benefits that they can use, and as well as a top down approach, which can be a sort of a bulldozing approach. So a combination of two normally works well. Keeping the culture in mind means that's very important. How to communicate a change may vary from a company A to company B. Sometimes it has to be very radically propagated, sometimes it has to be subtly uh, drawn to them. So it has to be a tailor made. So we have got people who are specializing just in change management, but till that time we have an inside view, outside in view just gives you a bird's eye view, but you have to have a rather inside out view, which would be more important. That's my perspective.
Absolutely, sir. No, I think a very valid point. I think you mentioned this twice, and I can't agree more that change management, there are a lot of frameworks out there, a lot of organizations who specialize in change management in general, but all of that has to be looked at through the lens of the cultural context in which the particular organization is operating. Those frameworks are great, but they work only as well as as how the company inherently tends to operate. So I think that insider's view is super critical. I think Sharat sir made some very critical points about um, the fact that it has to be both top down and bottom up, and those work the best because it's never going to be hammering something down. Eventually, for it to stick, and beyond the initial sort of euphoria, it has to be embraced truly by the people who it's touching day in and day out. So the what's in it for them question is fundamental. The other aspect of change where you obviously need to pay a lot of attention is communicate and communicate. You can over communicate as much as you want to. I think people might even ignore it, but you rather do that than to keep a stoic silence, because what I've seen in my personal experience as well is when you come at them last minute or very close to the moment of change, it's too much too soon for them. Right? So you got to ease people into the change. Understand that their ability to accept change may not be as much as your own, because you're probably in the thick of things and in the weeds through the program that you're working on. So just being able to appreciate that and take people through the journey over the course of the program, and communicate across the various levels in the organization. If it's a corporate change initiative, right from leadership level to say what's in it for them, it could be their metrics, their outcomes they're looking for. The people at the grassroots level are going to be looking at something a lot more mundane but more relevant for them. How does it make my day job any easier, right? How can I get that extra hour by doing something different, using a digital platform to be able to use that 1 hour for something else, right? Kind of building the relevance of the communication to each of the stakeholders in the process that you're touching, and being consistent in the way you go about is going to give you the best chance of success. The last comment I want to offer is, its change doesn't happen before the big event. It usually is more important to keep it going after the big event. When I say the big event, it could be the deployment of a platform, it could be an organizational change, it could be restructuring, could be any of it. But more often than not, we put a lot of emphasis on change management and communication before the key event, but and then it just goes cold. More often than not, people realize what happens and what has hit them after the event has actually happened. So all the more important that as a learning, that change management plans continue to take note and consistently reinforce messages as well beyond the event in question. And I think that gives us a much better chance of longer term success and people truly embracing the change.
Awesome. Thank you for that insight. We have one more question and then we'll go into our audience Q&A. So last question, Sharad sir, as an IT leader, what are the things that keep you awake at night?
Yeah, there are multiple things, obviously, but yes, being how am I keeping my organization secure is the most important thing that will keep any digital person awake. So we have to plan for the risk mitigation. How do I find investments for the risk? Because there's no value to it. There's no intrinsic value. There's only a value. It's just like an insurance. So how do I put in all the monies I want to? How do I convince my board? So that these are the relevant questions for everyone. And what? How do I plan for risk mitigation? So means cyber secure. How to remain secure, both physically secure, cyber secure, is one of the most important challenge for any IT leader to work upon. And importantly, one thing, sorry, I'm missing out, is about the people, because talent retention, talent acquisition is another very difficult task for any IT person these days. So how to keep them interested, how to keep them committed. Both of them are becoming equally important, and that if I go say 2 decades back, the life cycle of our technology was in decades. Now it's in years. Probably times are going to come when life cycle of a technology will reduce even shorter. Probably would be 2 to 3 years. So then what we have to also keep on evaluating is, today I'm working on technology A, which is say which may last till 2025. So I have to start evaluating the next technology. Once I implement new technology, I have to start evaluating the next technology immediately so that I am able to replace, rather transition, migrate from A to B seamlessly. Over to you, Mr. Bharat.
No, no, I think great point, sir. I think I was going to make the second comment. I think you probably read my mind. The challenge is going to be one of the things that we're seeing, right? And again, I'm offering a different lens because we consult for organizations where, while Sharad is living and breathing this daily. But what he said resonates with me because I'm hearing it consistently as well. Um, when you invest in a technology, it is usually more often than not some sort of a capital investment you're making, especially when you make larger platform or ecosystem related decisions. No, once you put the money in, you obviously need to make it work. You need to sweat the assets and ensure that you get the returns for it. But with these shortening life cycles, just simply knowing that you've taken the right decision itself is a bigger challenge, right? And when things do unravel because you have something new coming up, new disruptive, how do I ensure that I make the move at the right time, not too late, not too soon, to make sure that I have the right eventual financial metrics tied to my investments? I think that's a huge challenge for a CIO more than maybe somebody sitting in a manufacturing organization, because manufacturing technologies too have evolved and changed over time, but nothing like the pace at which we have seen technology life cycles shorten in terms of their duration. So I think it's a big problem. I don't think it's going to get easier. If anything, it'll get rougher and tougher. But we just have to figure out that we are making sure we're asking all the right questions upfront before taking some of these broad, impactful decisions.
Yeah, very aptly said, Bharatji.
All right. It is now time for our audience Q&A, and we've already got some questions rolling in. So we'll get started with one on the topic of ROI from Kashif Jamal, who asked, how can organizations measure the return on investment or assess the success of their digital supply chain transformation initiatives? Are there any specific metrics or KPIs that are commonly used? And Bharath, do you want to start us off on that?
Sure, Alexander. I can take a stab. I'm happy to, and Cheryl, please do feel free to join in. Most of these investments, especially when you make investments in fairly new technologies, they are going to be hard to measure. Some of it is around uh, taking a little bit of a leap of faith, but doing that in a controlled way with some sort of a pilot-driven approach. So it becomes easy to mature the efficiency and effectiveness outcomes, and then be able to scale up over time. What we've seen, whether it's technologies which have been around like your blockchain, AI, ML kind of investments that you make, the pilot approach is the best one, because the pilot in itself is going to give you the metrics that you can then track before making the larger investment. But like I mentioned, typically it comes through the lens of both efficiency and effectiveness. The third paradigm that you usually have in terms of ROI is being able to capture the risk before and the risk after you make the digital investments, right? It could be around translating the efficiency and effectiveness, but sometimes it's just protecting the supply chain from disruption has a value unto itself, right? It could be probability driven. It may be once in a blue moon occurrence. We hope so, but being able to mathematically model some of that, especially depending on the nature of investment in question, is going to give you some measurable metrics to track. Typical technology investments are usually around, like I said, if you look at both the realm of efficiency and effectiveness, things around automating processes, impact on people, especially the repetitive tasks, reducing the number of failures, reducing the leakage in the system, and time to market. These are the typical things that come to mind when you talk about digital investments in supply chain. Over to you, Sharad.
Yeah. So, Bharati, you very aptly summarized the process, means a POC approach, or some people call it MVP, minimum viable product approach. But as a user, so the ultimate ROI is what comes to my bottom line. Effectiveness, efficiency increments are obviously very important, but if I can accrue the benefits in real money term, so that's the ultimate ROI. But it the change, the twist I'm trying to offer here is that it shall not be based on every approach. Suppose I am taking 10 projects, out of these 3 projects fail, are not able to deliver. Probably I have taken a blockchain project which didn't come out. Now I am working on a LLM project. So we have to give the space to the technology leader so that he or she can give a cumulative result over a period of time to the management, but it shall accrue to the bottom line. That's the ultimate KPI.
Makes sense. Yep.
All right. Next question. How is cybersecurity managed during digital supply chain transformations?
You want to take it, Bharat?
I'm fine either way, sir. I think maybe best comes from you, because I think in your
So,
roles.
Mr. Naveen, thanks for the question, and it is very relevant as I was talking about what keeps us awake at the night. So, what we have to do, as I told you, one, we have been talking of this agile methodology and had been talking of DevOps platform. So, what has of late come is that is called DevSecOps platform. So, we have to integrate the development in a secure way. So that's the starting point, and have to embed the security within the complete software development life cycle. So that's just a short question, but yes, there are multiple plethora of ways which we can discuss. So happy to connect offline if there's a need. Thank you.
All right, next question, also for you, Sharad, sir. What should my company prioritize when looking into new technology?
Sorry, can you repeat the question, ma'am?
Sure, yes. What should my company prioritize when looking into new technology?
Bharat, you will probably am missing some part of her voice. Can you just
No, no, I can take a stab at it. Yeah. What the question was, I think, what should my company prioritize when looking into a new technology? Right. As a practitioner, what I would say is there are technologies galore. It's not going to keep changing. It will. The landscape is such that new technologies will emerge. I think we spoke at length in the earlier part of this conversation. It behooves of the company to look at this through the lens of your pain point, your strategic imperatives. Not every technology out there or every technology that's just emerging is going to become is relevant in the context in which you operate. So the lens I would offer is the company should look at what are its strategic priorities from a business perspective and from a very non-technical lens, right? And is depending, that could be anything from driving growth to getting into emerging markets, could be changes in the way in which you bring down your manufacturing costs. So you kind of really start from there, looking at your strategic objectives, and then drilling that down to a level where you have a then develop a point of view on where maximum degree of technology intervention is required, and that offers you then a set of options you can drill further to say, I have option A, B, and C from a technology perspective. Each of them then comes down to a fairly standard way of measuring the benefits, the risks, the impact, the ROI, and that gives you a layer, a logical approach to move forward. If, on the other hand, the approach taken is, listen, there is this swanky new technology in town. Let me think of how I can use it. That's probably not going to get you too far, right? You can spend a lot of time, you will get somewhere, but is it really giving business the outcomes they need? Not quite, because ultimately, when you go knock on the board for investments, the question will be, so what? So that's the only quick comment I wanted to offer in response to that particular
Yeah.
question.
Just to supplement your comment, Mr. Bharat, obviously we have to do the BIA, business impact analysis, but sometimes we have to have what do you say, a so-called thinker in our team who may be thinking of a new model of business which is not relevant today but might be relevant tomorrow. Just adding it in
Makes sense.
as a side comment.
All right, next question. What are your tips and tricks for change management specifically around digitalization?
Yeah, just two points here. One, don't try to boil the ocean the first time you try. Try to do it in a standard MVP style. Keep the hopper open. Keep on taking ideas. Let them pass the test of MVP, and whatever MVP is generating value, and then out of them, look for the ones which are giving the maximum value, and obviously keep the people interested. Bring something in for every stakeholder. So though it's a generic answer, but for digitalization, it's equally, I would say, suitable. Over to you, Mr. Bharat.
Yeah, sure. Just one other thing maybe I could add is always keep people at the heart of the change management process, because the moment you talk about digitalization, there is a natural nervousness around how does it impact me, right? Not in terms of benefits, but does it impact my job, for instance, right? So I think it is important to assuage that, and make sure that you can proactively communicate upfront, early, and put people at ease, so that when you do go down the journey, then it becomes a lot easier to explain the benefits rather than people starting to think that you have something sinister going on. Yeah.
Very interesting thought, because when computer came couple of decades back, people thought that they are going to eat all the jobs humans do, but rather they have increased the jobs of people like you and me at least, and multifold also.
Certainly, that's right.
All right. What are some major benefits organizations can expect to see 5 years after digitalization?
So so this will change whenever we talk. Probably today we'll have a different answer. After 2 years, it will have a different answer. But couple of major benefits is the output per human will increase. Suppose a person is able to give a output of, while making, if I talk about, if we are making a tire, if somebody in Bharat's team is writing a code, he is able to write code for three things, three problems. Probably if aided with a LLM model, something like Chat GPT, he or she may be able to write, take it to four, taking. So it will, the digital will be enabler to increase output of humans. That would be one of the major gains in the next 5 years. And secondly, as we specifically talking about India because the government is taking digitalization to the next level. So government was lagging behind, but they are now the top users, top preachers of the digitalization of the digital economy. So most of the things will get integrated, and we won't have to search from pillar to post to find answer to anything. So whatever you need is available in the virtual world. You will be able to find. So it will be things will become transparent, open to question. Queries will be resolved fastly, and we will be more efficient as well as effective. Bharatji, over to you.
That's right. No, I think in fact, Sharad, I'm going to stick my neck out and make a comment which could be a little bit more controversial. I do believe in many cases, in certain industries in particular, digitalization could be a matter of existential crisis. If you fail to digitize and do it rapid enough, you would find that your cost structures are going to be at a state where you are no longer able to support your core business, because that's how rapidly technology has made inroads into your ways of manufacturing, your ways of operating, and so on. So that's probably an extreme view, but it is not unlikely. I think in certain industries in particular that may well be the case. So clearly, 5 years is a long time in technology. I think, like Sharat sir said, there is a definitely an output question in terms of benefits that you will see. In many cases, it's completely transforming the way you're going to operate. It's not like I take a process and digitize. It could be a complete transformation in the way I do business.
Yeah, so just adding to what Bharati you are saying, so we have seen couple of models in which the jobs of advocates who are doing research to find a similar case with referential cases, and probably the junior lawyer might be taking couple of days to churn out five uh, references, but contextual LLM model may be able to do that, find 20 cases within say half a day. So yes, the nature of jobs will for sure change. As you means, I'm just supplementing to what you said, because existential crisis may come up in certain areas. But if we use it as an enabler, if I use technology as my friend, I as a junior advocate may be able to put a human element to it. So that's why it will be increasing my output, and because we are short, and probably we may be able to use it in judiciary also. Just a thought.
Yeah, that's true. I think we just have to transform ourselves, right? I think as you made a very pertinent point, about 5-10 minutes back, that when computers came for the first time, people said we're all going to be out of business. We're all doing more, not less now. It's just the nature of our roles, skills, and expectations from what we do has been transformed by technology at large. I think it's equally true here.
All right.
Perfect.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you to our speakers, Bharath and Sharad, sir, and thank you all for joining us. There will be a recorded on-demand version of this broadcast on the GEP website. Thank you again for your interest in this discussion, and have a great remainder of your week.
Thank you.
Thank you to all the team members, especially to you, Alexander, ma'am. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you.